free to put them in the chat, and I'll be more than happy to address them for you. So thank you all for being here. So happy 2024, guys. I am so excited to be here. Happy to get back here and after the holidays. Yes, we all needed a break, right? And see how we can help you. See how we can help you stay in the United States, be in the United States, get your family here if that is the goal that you are having for the first quarter of this year. Perhaps just let me know what you're thinking. What are some of the challenges that you are experiencing? Let me know what is going on, so then I know how to put the content out there and help you with that. In the meantime, let's see, one sec. Okay, good. So any questions you have, just put them there and I'll see them and I'll address them in the order in which you get them. Just please put them only once, okay? In the meantime, what I wanted to discuss was two things, okay? One of them is, this is an election year, okay? So generally speaking, because it's an election year, processing at immigration for citizenship and naturalization applications might be sped up a little bit, okay? So things might be moving a little bit faster. Where we are in South Florida, things have been moving quite fast for citizenship and naturalization, and in some cases, from the time of filing to the time they actually swore in and became U.S. citizens, some cases it was less than 3 months. We have been fortunate in that respect. That doesn't mean every case is like that. That could mean that those cases had no issues whatsoever, and they were in a specific field office where the volume and the staffing was as such that it accommodated for it. That being said, we have cases that are still pending a little bit past their processing times, and you can't go by the government processing times. That's really just a guideline. The guideline will tell you, okay, well, for Oakland Park, Florida is, say, 9 months. For Miami, which is like literally 30 minutes down, it could be 1.5 years. And it all depends on timing of your application, how solid was the application documented when you applied, the field office that it goes to, the field office that how much staff they have. Are they short-staffed? Are they trying to hire? Are they going to have a lot of people who are going in through training? All those things are affecting the speed at which your case is going to be moved, the case at which your case is going to be processed. So generally speaking, let's talk a regular case, okay? Once you hire the attorney, it takes a few weeks, sometimes a couple of months, to get the proper application together. And what do I mean by proper application? It has to be so well documented that the government has zero reason to reject. They still do it because they are not very competent, okay? They have zero reasons to reject, or they are going to send a request for evidence because something is missing, or they are simply just going to say you filed too early, you filed too late. What we have seen lately on almost all the filings, and it's not just us, all the immigration lawyers that we talk to each other all the time, and what we do see is the government loses half of the documents that are being sent in. And we all think they do it on purpose. Obviously, they're not, okay? Let's face it. Nobody's malicious on purpose. Nobody's doing things on purpose. But they are trying to encourage electronic filing, filing it online for almost all applications for which this is available. So if there is an application that you can file online, such as a removal of conditions that is joint, a work permit, renewal of the work permit, naturalization, I-130s, things like that, if you can file them online, do it that way. It will not allow you to submit until you meet the criteria, but you should try to do it that way. If you cannot file online, and that's not available for most applications, to be honest, it's available for some, but it's not available for others. If you cannot file it online, the paper application needs to be so solid. It gets to a specific lockbox, okay? So think about a huge warehouse with mail. There are pictures online. If you just Google USCIS mailroom, you will see the pictures. You'll see what they look like, and it's not fun. It really looks like an Amazon warehouse, and that's where your file is at some point, and hopefully it gets to the right place. Now, that being said, you need to make sure that the application, they don't like right now when you submit an application that has prongs or binder clips or anything. Meanwhile, they cannot keep the application together. Okay, they can't keep the application together. Half of those pages get lost. Then they are going to say you didn't submit it, even though it's right there, and you can prove to them it's right there. We have seen packages come back, not just us, many other people, other immigration attorneys. Like I said, we talk all the time, and we compare notes because we need to know what's going on out there. So do not get discouraged if you see an application that you are submitting to USCIS that is going to be rejected, or that they are going to say you didn't submit the birth certificate, or you didn't submit page number 5 of whatever. Yes, you know you submitted it, because you're not going to arbitrarily remove page number 5 from the application. So you just go with the flow, respond, and respond on time. So let's say the application is sent. The minute they get it, okay, they are processing it in the mailroom and it's being scanned. Think about what happens when you scan a document from color to black and white. It goes to black and white. If you're highlighting anything on that application, when they scan it, it appears redacted. It appears crossed off. Do not highlight anything on your application. If you need to do anything, circle it, okay? If you want to emphasize a certain part of your application or in documents. Yes, do I suggest you should do this with an attorney? Absolutely, but not everybody can do that, okay? So we understand that. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to answer your questions. If you guys have questions, please put them in the chat, and I'll address them in as many as I can in the time that I have, except if you're asking the same question more than once. If you're asking the same question more than once, I won't address it. So once they get it in the mailroom, they are going to check, and they are going to make sure that it meets the criteria. And they actually have a checklist. And you know who's making that decision? Somebody making minimum wage. Somebody making minimum wage who does not work for the government. It's a contractor. Okay, yes, they do get training. Okay, but they are really comparing your application with a specific checklist for your application type. And it basically goes like this. Did they put their first name? Did they put their last name? Is the zip code complete? Does it have the G28? Does it have this form? Is the form the right edition? Is everything, okay? So they are looking through all that. Assuming you meet the check boxes, then it gets processed. If you don't meet the check boxes, they could reject, okay, and send it back to you. Sometimes they actually cash the check and still reject it, okay? Or you are going to, they are going to process it, and then later on, somebody who's going to look at your application, again, not an officer yet, they are going to determine, do they need more information or not? And they could send you a request for evidence, send you a denial, a notice to intend to deny. Usually it's a request for evidence when they want more information. So when they send you a request for evidence, you need to make sure you meet the deadline, okay? Depending on how they phrase the request. If it's a notice of continuance, you have 33 days. If it's a request for evidence, you have 87 days. Most of them, 87 days, okay? 87 days. Jesus, I don't know. So yes, so we need to make sure it's 3 months, okay? So you need to make sure that it's under 3 months by 3 days. So you have to make sure you meet that. And you never want to submit the last minute, because they are going to deny it and say you didn't submit your request on time. They cashed your check, you lost your money, you lost your place in the line, and they are going to deny it. So before I go further and I tell you what happens after that, somebody had a question. So let me just go through that. I think it was... There you go. Soman wants to know who scheduled the interview, NVC or embassy. So this is the way that goes, okay? This applies not to USCIS. It applies to the National Visa Center. National Visa Center is part of the Department of State. National Visa Center does not schedule the interview until 2 things are happening, okay? 2. One of them, you need to be documentarily qualified. Okay, nothing is happening until you are documentarily qualified. Now, this assumes it's not a fiancé visa. Fiancé visa, it's a little bit different. You still need to be documentarily qualified, but it works slightly different. But for a regular spouse, family petition, employment petition, anything where you need to go for an interview besides the fiancé visa, National Visa Center needs to first documentarily qualify the case. Basically, you submitted all the documents and the documents meet the criteria. Okay, basically, you are eligible and you are able to prove that. The second thing they need to do, once you are documentarily qualified, if you're not documentarily qualified, you're not even in the queue. Okay, now assuming you are documentarily qualified, they are placing you in line to be scheduled for an interview. How does that work? Let's say, for argument's sake, that you are in Lahore, Pakistan, okay? And it's a spousal visa, so you are documentarily qualified, you are online, and today is January 4th, okay? At the end of the month, on the last day of the month, generally, the consulate will let National Visa Center know how many people they can schedule for interviews for the month of March. Okay, not for February, because they need to give people time to schedule and get there and get their police certificates and medical exams and so on. So generally speaking, they'll go March and April. So at the end of the month, this month, they are going to know the schedule for March. And that depends on their staffing. So if they have too many people on vacation on that month, if they have too many cases of a certain type, they could prioritize certain types. For example, let's say you're waiting as the wife of a US citizen and you're waiting to be scheduled. Well, if they have too many of a certain type of application, and this changes every month, by the way, and there is no rule there, they actually do this internally. At the Department of State, which also oversees the embassies, if they have too many of a certain type, and they need to meet the quotas. For example, before the end of October, they need to handle all the diversity visas, all the H-1Bs, all the other ones. That's what's going to happen at the end of the summer, usually every single year. Once that passes, now they are going to focus on family petitions, or they are going to focus on other things, okay? So when they get the numbers, they could come and say, again, let's pretend it's Lahore, Pakistan, and they are going to say, for the month of March, you can schedule 30 interviews for people to come and get their visas, or you can schedule 300, or you can schedule 1,000, okay? It depends on their staffing, how many people can they see in one day, the types of applications, and so on. And remember, just because you meet with the officer only for a couple of minutes in which they make a decision, they usually look at those cases beforehand. They already know what is going on. They already know what the red flags are. They kind of make a decision before they see you, and then they are just looking at you to confirm that their decision is correct. You really don't have a lot of time. So that's the way I'm hoping that answers your question of who schedules the interview. So it's the National Visa Center that will schedule it, but they will schedule it when the embassy is telling people that, is telling National Visa Center, now you can schedule. So I hope that makes sense and that answers your questions. Rosa, National Visa Center approved my husband's paperwork. How long for interview in Juarez? Forever, okay? So when you say they approved your paperwork, I'm assuming he is documentarily qualified. We have seen cases in Ciudad Juarez where they take almost 2 years after they are documentarily qualified to be scheduled for interview, okay? So if your husband has other options, then you might want to talk to your attorney and to see what you can do to get your husband here sooner rather than later. If not, he just has to wait until his interview. Now, what we see a lot in Juarez, okay? If your husband has any tattoos, okay? Make sure none of them are gang related. Make sure none of them raise any flags. Let's say your husband doesn't have any of that. One of the things that we see happening when they go to the medical exam in Juarez, and I don't know why they do this, because there are only a couple of places where they do this in the entire world, and it's crazy. Oh, how much alcohol do you drink? Oh, I have a beer here and there. They mark you down as alcoholic, and then They are making you wait an entire year and get tested to make sure you don't have alcohol in your blood. They do the same thing if you confess to marijuana. That's controlled substance. That's even worse. You do that recreationally, they don't care. Medical marijuana, it's not a good thing. They don't care that your doctor prescribed it. So we see that a lot. Okay, so be very careful. So Claudia, my grandma was missing the DS-260 at her interview today. Is that a denial? Your grandma had her interview. Well, good. Is that a denial? When you say she was missing the DS-260, was she able to get in the embassy or the consulate, or was she turned away from the consulate? If she was turned away, she probably will be marked as not showing up to the interview. Okay, and that is a straight denial. If she was allowed in because she had the confirmation page with the barcode and all that, then it's probably not a denial. If they kept her passport, then it's probably not a denial. Okay, if they didn't keep her passport and they gave her a piece of paper, have your grandma send us the piece of paper. Is it pink? Is it blue? What color is it? Let's look at it. A denial or a refusal, it's not the same thing. Sometimes they just want additional documents, okay? So let's see what we can do about that. But the fact that it happened today, it's good, okay? So give it some thought. You can also check the new status if you go to her application on the website, the CEAC, okay, the CEAC. All right, so do that. Lawyer didn't fill the DS-260. It is impossible because you do not get an interview unless you fill out the DS-260. So that, it's impossible, 100% impossible. You don't even get an interview unless you fill out the DS-260. This is what happens. Their websites are not working. They are not downloading it, okay? Or when they are downloading it, half of them are empty, okay? This has nothing to do with your mom, your grandma not filling out the DS-260. What also can happen is that your grandma's passport expired between the time you first applied and the time you went for the interview. If something doesn't match, there is no record of the DS-260. If she enters the consulate with another passport than the one she had, it doesn't match. It will not pull it up. It looks like it's not there. So that is not an accurate statement, okay? There is no way, zero way to get into the consulate for an interview if you didn't do the DS-260. Mon, how about if it's expedited? Do you have proof that you tried to expedite? How did you try to expedite? What was the basis for you trying to expedite your case? And tell me also the consulate, because that matters a lot, okay? So, Mon, I need to know, here's what happens when you file a request to expedite something. Two things happen. First, they need to approve the fact that you want to expedite this. So they need to say, oh, okay, we're gonna look at this a little sooner, okay? So that's the first thing that needs to happen. Second, they don't need to tell you that they did it or they didn't do it. Assuming they are accepting to look at it out of turn and look at it ahead of other people, then they need to see if you qualify or not. So you qualify for it to be expedited, and then they can still deny your expedite request. But let's say they expedite the request, okay? Let's say they expedited the request, then they are going to make a decision whether you are going to see sooner than later, if they have time, if they have staffing, and so on. The case is expedited by Child Benefit U.S. Citizen 2002, so by CSPA. If you know that, you already have a lawyer, you should be asking your lawyer that question and not me, okay? Because your lawyer has a lot more information about your case than I would, okay? You really should be asking your lawyer about the CSPA and how is it protected. If the child ages out, okay, and it could be, if the child ages out and it's no longer protected by the CSPA, then generally they do expedite, okay? If someone aged out 21 before the green card process through, what's the next step? So it really depends. It depends where in the green card process was the person before they aged out? What was the initial category? What is the current category? Did the petitioner change their immigration status? Perhaps they naturalized. What was their priority date? Was there a CSPA calculation done? Okay, so those are the questions that you really need to look into. Okay, and what's the next step? It really, see, we get this a lot, okay? Not this particular question. We get this a lot where we have people call our firm and they are like, I only have a question for the attorney. You guys need to understand there is no attorney that can give you an answer based on one question. Before we can answer your one question, we need to ask you about 100 questions, okay? So this one, you really need to calculate the CSPA age, calculate that against the priority date, and if they aged out, they are shit out of luck, okay? So let's hope they did not age out. So the same thing for Mon earlier, okay? Nasser wants to know, how long does I-751 take to get approved? 4 years minimum. 4. So let's say you filed a joint application for removal of conditions, okay? And the first receipt you got extended your green card by 2 years. If you got lucky, you just applied and you got an extension for 4 years. You're still a permanent resident. You are going to be a permanent resident until that application is approved. If you filed jointly and you're still married and living with your spouse, you can file for naturalization with a US citizen in 3 years, not 5 years. You do not need to wait for the 751 to be approved, okay? So do that. If you want this to move faster, that's the way you get the 751 to have a decision on it, okay? Now, if it's a waiver, 751, because you got divorced, you're no longer with your spouse to which you got your green card, that is a lot more complicated. You cannot file for naturalization until the 751 is approved. Good. So we are done with those questions. I only have about 3 to 4 minutes to go. So I'm going to try to speed up. So once we get through USCIS and they are going through your application, you could get your application, depending on the application type, approved without an interview. So you could get an interview waiver, especially if it's properly documented. What you think is properly documented, believe me when I tell you it's not. If it's properly documented, you could get an approval without an interview. Even for green cards, we see that a lot lately on our applications. We see a lot denied that come or with requests for evidence that we didn't file, so we take over the case. Generally, if they already have a request for evidence, you could be called for an interview. Now depends on the request for evidence. If the request for evidence is only for a medical, you might get approved without an interview. If they only want taxes, could be either way. So it really depends. Always, always, always submit the most complete application you possibly can in the beginning. Okay? So the next thing is you have to wait, right? They're going to send you for fingerprints, or they're going to send you a notice that says they are going to reuse the same fingerprints that you already did. They are going to reuse your biometrics. So they're going to do that. And then they are either sending you an approval, a request for evidence, or a request for you to appear at the interview. And the goal is to get approved, right? And in my opinion, the goal is to get approved as soon as possible without a request for evidence and without an interview, ideally. Yeah, without an interview. Yeah, I love that. Okay. So Claudia, good. Her interview was at the embassy. Fabulous. They gave her a blue paper and the passport. So they gave her the passport back. Now, Claudia, do me a favor. Can you read from there and tell me exactly if you have the blue paper, and I'm hoping you do. Is it 212G or 214B? Which one, under which she was denied? There are two main reasons for which visas get denied, okay? Hold on. You said it's blue, right? Okay, hold on. Yeah, just let me know while I'm looking for this so I can give you the answer for that. All right. So it's a 221G. Okay, generally speaking, the blue form. and they need additional documents. Okay, so when they need additional documents, generally speaking, they are telling you what they need. Okay, your grandma should know what she was asked for. If you are saying it's just the DS-260, then that DS-260, you cannot change it online. The actual consular officer has to make the change, okay, or has to reopen the application for your lawyer to make the change. Claudia, you have a lawyer. Have your lawyer handle this, okay? Trust your lawyer. So far, if they got into the consulate, the DS-260 was there, okay? 221G doesn't mean much. It just says it's, you know, they want additional documents to make a decision. It is not a denial, okay? So don't worry about it. Most likely she will be approved. It might take time. It could be that she is being placed in administrative processing. What does that mean? We didn't give you the passport now, but if you do A, B, C, D, then we are going to give you the visa, okay? You're saying that this was a DS-260, so she applied for a green card. Who petitioned for her, Claudia? And what consulate is this? Since you're still here, let's see. Okay, so you need to submit those additional documents, so you should be fine. Let's see. Yep. In order to receive the visa, you need to attend the interview, which you did. They need, the application is suspended, so basically they are waiting. Okay, Honduras. Okay, fine. So it's your mom who petitioned for your grandma, correct? Because you couldn't have, because there is no option for grandma. So yeah, the visa petition would be approved after they receive the additional documents. Assuming there are no additional documents, they could just say, we need to look at it. The thing is, in her case, because they didn't keep her passport, it is more likely than not that they are going to ask, that they are not processing this in admin processing. They are just going to wait for the documents first, and then it could take months, okay? It could take a couple of weeks, but it could take months, okay? So it will tell you, generally speaking, visa has been refused. A refusal, it's not a denial, okay? So hopefully this was helpful for you. Claudia, hope that helped. Man, hopefully that helped you guys. It's good to see you. I'll see you guys again Tuesday at, I think, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So thanks for following us. Oh, the NVC doesn't let us go back and fix it. The lawyer doesn't want to help. Thank you so much. One, the lawyer should want to help. Maybe, I don't know why. Give us a call if you want our help, 954-466-0070. We are in Florida, but we help clients everywhere. We have many from Honduras. NVC doesn't let you go back because, like I said, the application is closed, okay? The DS-260, there is nothing you can do there, okay? And if it's just the DS-260 that they need changes on, then the consular officer themselves needs to go in there and make the change, okay? So give us a call if you want. We can schedule a strategy session. We can look over your case, and then we'll let you know your options, okay? So hopefully this was useful. Hopefully this helped at least a few of you to do it on your own. Be careful with doing it on your own. I suggest hiring a lawyer because your life is very important. Okay? Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.